On the Steam platform, you can now play quite a few MMOs. Not all of them were available there right from the start. Some were released later, such as Guild Wars 2 or RuneScape. On the other hand, there are also titles that are only playable on Steam, such as Bitcraft, Throne and Liberty, or Lost Ark. The data is based on SteamDB and the respective player peak on Saturday, December 6th. Rank 10 goes to a game Guild Wars Reforged. The new update and the new purchasable bundle for €19.99 have significantly boosted player numbers for the old MMO from 2005. It reached a peak of 5,570 concurrent users, which is an all-time best for Guild Wars 1. Fairly speaking, though, nostalgia is doing most of the work here, since the Reforged version mainly offers smaller graphical and UI adjustments, controller and Steam Deck support, and the quest tracker as a new feature. There's no truly new content. Still, Reforged has pushed games like Lord of the Rings Online or New World out of the top 10. Rank 9 is occupied by its direct successor, Guild Wars 2. It had 8,626 concurrent users at peak on Saturday. Admittedly, the numbers are already slightly declining again, because this game reached its Steam high point with the new expansion Visions of Eternity, hitting a strong 10,875 players. That record was set on November 9th. Interestingly, Guild Wars 2 didn't even make it into the top 10 back in September. Looking ahead, the next quarterly update is planned for January, although without a major content update. Instead, raids and strike missions will be reworked. Rank 8 go to Palia. The cozy MMO game focused on shared adventures and housing is still very popular. The hype generated by Elderwood in May and animal breeding in September has died down a bit, but with a peak of 9,088 players, the game is still in a very solid position. Rank 7 goes to Amazon's first launched MMO, Lost Ark. It reached 11,613 concurrent players, which is a clear drop compared to September, when it even made it into the top 3. At that time, there was a major patch with the new Valkyrie class and several boost events. The big December update won't arrive until next week and mainly focuses on improving the onboarding experience and progression, which should at least give the numbers a small boost. Rank 6 is claimed by the Elder Scrolls Online, the MMO from ZeniMax. It recorded 12,283 players at peak. Unfortunately, this is one of its weakest results since 2018. Since the COVID years, player numbers on Steam have been declining, and even the new DLC released at the end of November couldn't really stop that trend. In particular, there was quite a bit of criticism surrounding the Winding Wall event. A few days ago, however, major class adjustments were announced. Rank 5 goes to Albion Online. On November 19th, the new update Realm Divided was released, introducing provinces. Multiple regions are now grouped together, and players can fight for control of them by besieging faction fortresses. This provided another small boost to player numbers, and with 12,955 concurrent users, the Sandbox MMO improved during the last months. Rank 4 is taken by Amazon's second MMO, Throne and Liberty. With 13,005 concurrent players, the numbers are almost identical to the last month's numbers. Recently, a small patch was released that connected the Hyperboost servers with the regular legacy servers, added new Abyss dungeon events, and introduced a personal damage meter. How things will develop in the long term is still a bit unclear, but NCSoft has already promised a new expansion for 2026. Rank 3 in the ranking goes to the classic side-scroller MapleStory. Back in September, it was really surprising to see its 9,400 concurrent players, but the numbers have grown significantly since then. Recently, 13,837 players were online at peak, and the all-time Steam peak was even reached in mid-November with over 17,700 users. That was when a patch was released that brought improved onboarding, more quality of life features, and new character progression. That clearly drew in a lot of players. Rank 2 goes to Black Desert. A few months ago, it benefited from the new Adenaya expansion and reached over 27,000 players at peak. Currently, however, the number has dropped significantly to 16,618. That's more of a low point, especially when you remember the COVID period when it had over 60,000 players on Steam. Still, a new class will be released in December, which should cause the numbers to rise again a bit. Rank 1 goes to Final Fantasy XIV. The 19,811 concurrent players are also a relatively weak figure here. The controversies surrounding Dawntrail and its story have clearly left their mark. However, the new patch 7.4 will be released on December 16th, transitioning the story to the next chapter. It's also exciting that Naoki Yoshida has announced major reworks for the MMO, describing them as something like a Realm Reborn 2.0, mainly affecting onboarding and the overall time investment required. What exactly will change is supposed to be discussed at the next FanFest. As an honorable mention to finish off, I'd like to mention Where Winds Meet. While it's not a classic MMO, it does feature some typical elements. With 162,000 concurrent players, it's currently ranked 8th among all games on Steam, which is quite an impressive achievement. In addition, Ashes of Creation will likely shake up the list again with its early access starting on December 11th. A number 1 spot should be possible, at least in the early phase. After all, 20,000 concurrent users isn't a huge number, especially since existing alpha testers could theoretically move their accounts over to Steam if they choose to do so. And with that, we've reached the end of the list. Which MMO surprised you here, and which one did you expect but didn't see? Feel free to write it in the comments.